Well, it's exactly 44 minutes past the 7. My name is Shivana Auma, and the conversation on the Twitter jabs continues in regard to the Kampala capital city border census. Now, effective Monday, the 15th of August, Kampala Capital City Authority passed a directive or an order that began the census for all motorcycles, also known as boda, as well as riders operating in the Kampala capital city center. Well, the exercise took place or is still taking place at selected centers in the city as shared. Well, the following are the forms that were required by all boda riders to present before registration, including a duly filled application form. Of course, these are available at the different census centers, as well as a national identity card, letters from the LC, as well as a letter from the parish internal security officer, as well as a copy of the logbook. Well, the exercise has been running daily from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and will run until the 30th of August 2022, and that will be the close of this month, which is approximately 9 days. So you literally have 9 days to get your boda registered. Well, we had different reactions on social media, and joining me today at the center of this conversation is none other than Engineer Fortunate Bira, and she is from the Directorate of Engineering and Technical Services at the Kampala Capital City Authority. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us this morning on Sunrise at Sea.
Good morning to you too. Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Having me.
Absolutely. So how is Kampala Capital City Authority?
Well, we're good. We're working to make the city better.
Okay, absolutely. Yes. Well, my first question, and let's cut right to the chase, is what is the boda census all about? I know you did send out a directive, the Kampala Capital City sent out a directive and said bodas should be able to register from 15th of August 2022 up to the 30th of August 2022. So tell us what this census is all about and why it is also necessary.
So, well, following the directive from the Prime Minister, KCCA, in collaboration with other institutions, started planning, of course, and then planning for streamlining of bodas in the city and eventually for the country at large. And the first exercise that was agreed to take place was the census. Now, the census is aimed at taking stock of the bodas, but also motorcycles, private motorcycles in Kampala, to help us have sufficient information to plan better for them. It's important that the public understands that even when your motorcycle is private, institutions like Umeme, for example, will be expected to register their motorcycles. Delivery companies like Jumia, all these are supposed to register because we need to be able to identify whether when we meet you on the street during implementation, it should be possible for us to identify whether you are boda, and in that it means that we can be able to assess whether you're complying with the requirements or whether maybe you do not fall into the category that ought to be complying. So the census is to help us get the numbers, understand the environment, plan for it better with the right information.
Okay. So among the challenges that we noticed, and of course this particular information reached different media houses, and of course the executive director, that is Ms. Dorothy Kisaka, did mention and noted that there was a low turn-up and even called upon politicians to help mobilize. So this is week 2, because from the time when we started, from the 15th, this is week 2. What is the status update? What is the turn-up like? Are you seeing results?
So obviously the first 3 days were challenging. We were not fully set up, especially because we faced a lot of power supply challenges at the centers. And because of that, we lost some 3 days. On Thursday, we started to register, and on Friday, actually, by the time the day was ending, we were getting a lot of riders coming, of course, to inquire for more information, but some of them were actually registering. So we are hopeful that this week is going to be, the riders are going to be more responsive and it will be probably evident at the centers during the course of the week.
Okay, so who exactly is required to register?
For as long as you operate a motorcycle in Kampala City, you're expected to. It's not the first step. You know, there is 2 terms. We have census and registration. So what we're doing right now is
the census.
The census. At a later stage, we will register. That will be very specific to border borders, and there will be more requirements that they will have to fulfill. For example, they must show that they have permits. We'll have to look at their medical certificates. So it will be a bit more stringent.
That is for when it comes to registration.
Yes, but for the census, everyone who is operating a motorcycle in Kampala is expected to come and submit their records for entry into the system.
Okay, so for the census, what documents are required? Because you talked about the registration where you sit will be more stringent, but how about the census? What documents does a border rider need to come with?
Yes, for the census, a rider is expected to fill in the form, submit it with a copy of the logbook, a letter from the LC in the area of both areas of operation and residence, and then a copy of the national ID. So just those 4 for now.
So among the tweets that we read earlier on with my colleague Aguwase is that some people think that this particular census actually requires one to come with money. So just take us through the procedure. How does it go, and is it a free or is it a charged initiative?
The census is free. We cannot say this enough. The census is free, and when you get to the center, you will receive a form. Of course, we would advise that if you pick a form, show it to your friends so that they can come with the information, you know, as opposed to coming and return and coming twice, you know. But the forms are free, they're available, they can be downloaded from our website still. And when you get there, we check if you have all the requirements. If you have missing requirements, we request you to provide them, and then you're entered into our system. It's a web-based system. And of course, because it's a web-based system, once you're entered, we don't expect someone else to come and enter your information. The system automatically detects that this motorcycle is being registered by more than one person. So essentially, that's all you need to come with. As long as you have the attachments, you should be registered. Now, there is a special category. These are the individuals that had initially submitted forms to the RCCs. This particular category is still encouraged to come to the centers and revalidate their information, ensure that they are, verify that they are in the system, and if there is any information they had not previously submitted, then they would provide it at that stage.
Okay.
But we retain the information that was earlier submitted and use it. We only add on to what they had earlier submitted.
So a certain section of Ugandans, especially of course border riders, since we're talking about a census carried out on border riders, feel that when it comes to Kampala Capital City Authority, there is a bit of reluctance or confusion, or even some people would say disparity, because about a month ago, borders were registering. I know this is a census, but I think they're also confusing the two, because they were registering and they were required to pay between a sum of 60,000 and 70,000. So some people are saying, okay, I registered the other time, now I'm coming for the census, why do I need to come twice?
So the other exercise, I don't want to talk too much about it, but I know it was a training exercise, and now KCCA, we are taking the census, and the registration in any case is still going to be after the census.
Because then why wasn't the census carried out when the border riders were doing their training? That is an issue that some of them have actually raised, that during the time when they went to register and also do their training, because that's the time when they were even able to ascertain their mental state, their state of sight, why weren't they registered there and then?
Why weren't they registered there and then? Well, we as KCCA, we can only have full control over our exercise.
True,
okay?
true.
So right now, we need the information, we need to independently verify it. And so, whereas we are cognizant of the fact that they went for training, again, we still want to be confident
that they are part and parcel of.
We want to be confident of the data we are entering into our systems, and thus the need for them to come and we collect this data ourselves.
Absolutely. So is this census being taken, is it only taking place in Kampala or is it happening countrywide?
Right now, Kampala has been the start. You know, we're starting here, but it is expected that it will be rolled out to the greater Kampala metropolitan area soon, and then to the country at large later.
Okay, so is the registration for all Boda Boda riders or the Boda Boda owners themselves? Because some of the tweets that we're actually reading is that some Boda Boda riders, the borders that they ride are actually not theirs. So is it those that ride them that need to register, or the owners of the Boda Bodas themselves?
Either of the two parties can actually come, but you don't have to, they both don't have to come. That's the difference. So an owner can provide the relevant information to the rider, and then the rider will submit that information to KCCA. Or vice versa, the rider could provide his information to the owner, and the owner would submit the information to KCCA. We don't need for both of them to be there, but one of them must be there. And when they do show up, they should have all the relevant information.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges that you're facing as KCCA, maybe from the Boda Boda riders themselves or from some of the local governments as well? What are some of the challenges that you've been facing ever since you unveiled this plan?
The biggest challenge is the low turn-up, last week really. And of course, we've started massive campaigns on the streets because we appreciated that maybe campaigns on TV and on the other social media platforms were not reaching them. So now we have a mobile truck that is reaching out to the areas to sensitize, educate them before they even move to the centers, to kind of bridge that gap. And that's why we are expecting a better turn-up, because we saw the impact on Friday this week. That was really the major challenge. Of course, we had challenges, like I said, to do earlier in the setup, but that has been managed.
Okay, so how about places where some Boda Boda riders went and actually they were told, that the people in that area, the Elses, were told that they were not aware of this particular arrangement? That's
because the exercise of streamlining Boda Bodas was launched prior by the Prime Minister, and different institutions were involved and notified. You would expect that everyone was aware, because there were multiple institutions that were involved in the planning prior to the 15th. So if there are local leaders who are saying that they were not aware, that's unfortunate, but there were attempts to inform at the planning level the stakeholders in government on the upcoming exercise.
Okay, so now the exercise is mainly looking at streamlining and registering and of course counting of Boda Bodas. But is the exercise also going to be able, of course not now depending on the time, but also account for example, the taxis or even buses, or is it strictly Boda Bodas that are being counted?
For now, our focus is Boda Bodas. But again, we are planners, the city planners. Once that is done and the milestones are achieved and the benefits then we realized, we will move to the other sectors. And of course, because the benefits will have been observed by our stakeholders, the clients, the people in the private sector in public transport, it will make it easier for us to streamline the other areas. Okay. But we will certainly eventually get there.
Okay, so finally, as we wrap up the conversation, a word from KCCA to Boda Boda riders that are hesitant to partake in this particular exercise. Do you have any message for them?
Yes, to all Boda Boda riders, owners, we call upon you to participate in the BODA BODA census exercise. It is for your good, of course, plus the good of the public, the wider public. It will help us to know exactly who you are, how you operate, to understand your business better so that we plan in a manner that does not impact you so negatively, to help us bring order in the city. But also, if you think about it as an individual, because we are entering your information in a system that can detect someone else trying to own your BODA, it will mean that there will be some hurdle that will have been introduced if someone wanted to steal your BODA. That's an advantage to you, and you should look at it and consider it a positive that will come to you personally, and basing on that, we encourage you to come to the centers and be recorded in our system.
Okay, so we saw that the executive director of Kampala Capital City Authority, I mentioned it earlier, that she called upon members of parliament or politicians to mobilize and encourage our BODA riders within their different constituents to go ahead and, encourage the BODA riders to come and register and also take part in the census. So was this done because some politicians were not on board? And of course, what message do you have towards the politicians that are watching this morning?
Yes, we are engaging the politicians. As KCCA, we are making effort to reach out to them and help them understand and support the process. And what I can say is the ones that we've been able to engage are responsive and they're positive towards the exercise. So that is very good. And for those that, of course, some voices, negative voices stay, but we are hopeful that as we continue to engage, they will come on board, and we appeal to our political leaders to support the exercise to streamline borders because it benefits all of us, the citizens. Absolutely.
So finally, a message from the Directorate of Engineering and Technical Services at Kampala Capital City Authority.
From the Directorate, we want to thank you. We want to thank CTV for hosting us, for giving us a platform to sensitize the public, and we want to thank those riders that have already been responsive and call upon all motorcycle owners, institutions, umeme, cafe javas, national water, government, please, please approach KCCA, go to the centers and find a way to get your BODA recorded in our system as we undertake this census.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Madam Fortunate, for joining us this morning on Sunrise at Sea.
You're welcome.
Well, I was seated with Engineer Fortunate Bira from the Directorate of Engineering and Technical Services at the Kampala Capital City Authority. And today our conversation, we're looking at the BODA census in Kampala. And if you missed this particular segment, just a reminder that this exercise kicked off on Monday, the 15th of August, and will be closing on the 30th of August, 2022. And some of the requirements that you need to go with if you are to register your BODA is one, a duly filled application form, like Madam Fortunate has highlighted. You can be able to get these at available census centers, as well as a national identity card, letters from the LC, as well as a parish internal security officer, as well as a copy of the logbook. Of course, the different divisions, when you look at Nakawa division, the venue is the Nakawa Community Hall. For Kawempe, it is Makerere Yellow Primary School, Kawempe Mbogo Primary School, Imperial Church of Uganda Primary School, and St. Paul Chebando Primary School. If you are in the central region, your venue is Bat Valley Primary School and Old Kampala Secondary School, while Machindye, it is Officers Mess and Lukuli Playground, as well as Kansanga Seed School Playground. And finally, for the people in Lubaga Division, yours is Lubaga Division Gardens. But also, like Madam Fortunate has said, you can be able to actually go to their website and get all the information that is required in regard to census of borders in Kampala. Otherwise, that winds up the conversation that I had for you this morning on the Twitter Jabs. However, do stay tuned because we continue, and right next is our views, and we ask the question, is career limiting in Uganda? That is a question, but also you can be part of the conversation by going to our Twitter platform at CTV Uganda. Leave your comment and Apollo Sarah will be reading your mixed reactions. Good morning and don't blink.